Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, today let's go over the Trump tweets of September 13th, and the first one reads, "The problem with banker Jamie Dimon running for president is that he doesn't have the aptitude or smarts and is a poor public speaker and nervous mess. Otherwise, he is wonderful. I've made a lot of bankers and others look much smarter than they are with my great economic policy." And of course, that is in response to Jamie Dimon kind of semi-throwing his hat in the ring for 2020, saying that he could be better at president than Trump.
Well, that's because the other 45 people they put up their names for, none of them all added together can, in fact, compete against Trump. So he's just laughing at this. This is absolutely laughable. By the way, Betsy, it's always an honor that you ask that myself and Advice from the Conclave give our Trump drop decodes, because it's so important to understand what he's doing. If you understand his new executive order, you might see it to be the actual victory that it is for patriots. But if you just see it on the surface and the way that people attack it, then you might think that it doesn't mean much.
And
so we love that.
Because Michael McKibben and Douglas Gabriel were just on doing an audio about this new executive order. You must see it. Go into our playlist. It's the audio just before this one. The other thing, too, now, when we get into Jamie Dimon, there's a lot of decoding that could happen in this tweet. So much.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in on that one. Jamie Dimon is a criminal. Now, remember, for 4 years, Chase Manhattan and Citibank, that hold more silver coins minted here in America than anyone else in the world. As a matter of fact, they have vaults right next to where they're minted, so that when they're minted, they can simply be moved over to their vaults, okay? So they were 4.5 years, investigated by the federal government for silver manipulation, which was basically manipulating the world's derivative market. And in the end, after 4.5 years, they said, "You're guilty." And they said, "Oh, it's okay because the U.S. Treasury asked us to do it." This is how corrupt he is. Chase Manhattan and Citibank are warlord bankers and brokers, and they should be separated. No banker should have anything to do with brokerages or betting or stock market betting or derivatives. That's all betting with insider trading information from the get-go. It should be illegal. Look what he did to Bitcoin. He came out and lied and lied. He said he would fire any of his brokers that would even trade in Bitcoin, and then he went and bought the largest amount of Bitcoin that had been bought at that point right afterwards. And then what did he do? Then he sold it and crashed the market. So he is the one who started crashing the cryptocurrencies just for fun. And then what did he say after that? He's going to start his own cryptocurrency. So he had been previously directly controlling and part of the U.S. Federal Reserve and the central bank system that control our economy. What Trump is saying here again is he makes a lot of bankers look good with his Trumponomics, and that is a fact. But he's laughing at them with his tongue in his cheek, saying, just as Jamie Dimon is a pathetic presidential campaign, who I don't even know if they had him on the list or made odds for him because he wouldn't get votes. He's pathetic.
But the most important thing here, I think, is that Chase has physical silver. They don't have paper derivatives. And remember, if it's not clinking in your hands, you don't own silver. This paper silver fraud is what is suppressing the price of silver and keeps people from seeing its true value.
Jamie and Chase and Citibank were going to, after the crash that was planned by Hillary in the stock market, after she was going to bomb Damascus and start basically Armageddon, to please her globalist masters and to make sure that the war would then create enough chaos that she could turn Canada, America, and Mexico, and Central America all into one country that she would rule forever, and or her surrogates thereafter, which would be her daughter, which is her daughter but not Bill's daughter. So what do we see here? We see that Trump is, with tongue-in-cheek, making fun of them again, saying Jamie's as good a presidential candidate as you pathetic U.S. Federal Reserve bankers are good bankers. He is manipulating them, and they don't even know it. He's getting ready to hammer them by taking control of the entire board that controls these things, and then he's going to have them freeze the assets of the central banks. And the The plan is beautiful. And it's a very simple plan. And Jamie Dimon, I'm sorry to have to say it, they think he's a genius. He's not a genius at all. He stepped into the Rockefeller Bank, the corrupt bank, and he doesn't really do anything. And all he is an insider. He's not a smart guy.
Okay, and back to Chelsea Clinton. That is her father, because Bill and Hillary were married at the time that Chelsea was born. You're speaking that her biological father is not Bill, and I just want to clarify that. Okay?
That's right.
And so, well, we do know that there is a person who claims to be Bill's son, but there has been no DNA test.
Bill is shooting blanks, or all the women that he raped and had sex with, one of them would have had a baby and blackmailed him. And no, Bill is shooting blanks, and Chelsea doesn't look anything like him.
The next tweet. We are completely ready for Hurricane Florence. As the storm gets even larger and more powerful, be careful. And then you will see some tweets. If you go into the link in the description box, you will see several tweets where we have their graphics about that hurricane.
Well, I didn't tell you this, Betsy, but the conclave took a vote and said that it will be less than half of what was being predicted 24 hours ago, and that we believe that was really the prayers of people that demonstrate that prayers can affect things, even physical things. And what we see here is that Trump is the most concerned of all presidents when it comes to American safety, American security, his response to any emergencies that happened. He is actually doing the best job of any president I've seen in my life.
More text messages between former FBI employees Peter Strzok and Lisa Page are a disaster and embarrassment to the FBI and DOJ. This should never have happened, but we are learning more and more by the hour. And then a quote. Others were leaking like mad, close quote, in order to get the president. It is a cesspool of corruption, and the people who did this need to be brought to justice, close quote. And that is from Greg Jarrett.
I like cesspool. We had chosen the word cesspool because it was so much more accurate. But we backed off of that. So I like the fact that they want to go to cesspool of corruption, because it is. It's institutionalized leakers who aren't even being prosecuted. They're not even being looked at. James Wolfe, Allie Watkins, Daniel Richman, the paid-for FBI leaker, Comey's bunk buddy, paid for. He was a paid leaker. That was his job. Same thing with Stephen Halper, many of these people. And then they turn in bills for $400,000 like Stephen Halper. And what did he do? He just did the frame up of George Papadopoulos. So what are we talking about here? National security, manipulation of public opinion during an election. Aha, here is the setup for the executive order. Here is the finger being pointed at that people like Peter Strzok said that leaking was institutionalized. As many as, 13, 17 different FBI people reported to one particular reporter, and the Page Strzok messages are constantly talking about what a good job Devlin is doing and the way he's releasing these things. And oh my gosh, they got out quicker. Oh, it got out quicker and better. Bigger response than we thought. Oh, good work. Make sure to go tell the department in the FBI that was in charge of leaking. Make sure to go tell them the good job you're doing. That's how institutionalized it was. It was just bantered around as if it was the thing to do. If that's what you're there for. The FBI was there to run opposition, weaponized Obama administrative campaign against candidate Trump. And they say it in these messages, and Michael Horowitz isn't finding any of these. He can't find his shoes to put on in the morning, obviously, because he's indicted no one. The leakers, the names have been pouring out, and you are ignoring them. So what you really need to do is realize that is a complete hoax, that Michael Horowitz, who has been put in charge of finding these leakers, he is no more interested in finding the leakers than Obama is. There are the leakers. That was part of their plan. That was the way they were going to take down Trump. Manipulation of the mainstream media, basically turning it into oppositional research mainstream media.
This is a retweet, and it comes from Sarah Carter and Lou Dobbs. We have found nothing to show collusion between President Trump and Russia. Absolutely zero. But every day we get more documentation showing collusion between the FBI and DOJ, the Hillary campaign, foreign spies, and Russians. Incredible.
Yes, Sarah Carter really is getting a lot of attention. Lou Dobbs always there, shooting from the hip and saying good things, but sometimes not quite going far enough. We need to point out that what they're saying here is very fine.
I think she's a CIA asset, and we're going to find that out down the road, just like we found out about Bob Woodward is an FBI asset.
Well, she is one of the most quoted people on that anonymous site over there that keeps quoting her. Anyway, Rat Rodenstein, we know what he's done, so what they're saying here is nothing more than a repeat, but they should be saying and quoting on a certain date that Rat Rodenstein, because they're out there in the mainstream media and Fox, they should be again and again and again hammering his perjured statements and not letting up and saying he must be fired because of his perjury. He must be fired because of the way he perjured himself in testimony before the Congress in relationship to FISA, in relationship to politicalization of the FBI and the DOJ. Just the words that we hear him say out loud on the mainstream media, that's what they should be going after. But instead, they are in the battle and in the war against mainstream media, demonstrating that they are, as what we just coined the phrase, they are oppositional research mainstream media. They are opposition media. That is their job. They are a monopoly. They are racketeering. And they're simply spitting out what George Soros is having spit out all over Europe through the Atlantic Council's control of what is said there. That's now taken over Facebook, George Soros, Atlantic Council, Facebook, and the mainstream media is controlled by Avid, ISIS Management, and Eric Schmidt's Digital News Initiative. So we have lost the majority of our free speech when it comes to mainstream media. But we can still win the battle because of Trump's new executive order, which says all of those people were part of a conspiracy working as domestic enemies with foreign countries against an election. And that's what is the fact of the matter.
Now, you and Michael went into that subject at great length, so I urge you again, if you want to hear more about that, look at that last audio we uploaded. The next is a retweet. President Trump would need a magic wand to get to 4% GDP, stated President Obama. I guess I have a magic wand, 4.2%, and we will do much better than this. We have just begun. Of course, the quote comes from Barack Obama, and attached in there is a little video of him saying just that.
With a little background music that makes him look like a jester, a clown, a fool. All you have to do, folks, plug in anything about Barack Obama, listen to it, and all you will hear is lies. Now that he's gone, there's no legacy. There's just a liacy. Nothing but lies, fake, fabrications, obfuscations, just conflation beyond imagination. Why? Because he was never anything but a liar. He didn't even tell us his real name. And as a matter of fact, he committed a crime by not telling us his aliases. The man had a dozen aliases in his life, and he never said that he had a one. He's a criminal from the beginning, and by the way, Trump does have a magic wand, and GDP is actually being estimated to be even higher in the next quarter. And as Trump says, they've just begun. Trumponomics is just getting going. Now, I'm going to complain real hard here in a minute about Debbie Stabenow and the other bozos who think that they can interrupt a Trump trade deal, because all they're doing is adding a millstone around our neck, as they have been doing since they were elected. We don't get to do that anymore, Debbie, or any of the other Democrat obstructionists and part of the resistance. And by the way, there was no one in the White House who was part of the resistance who wrote that story. Trump had to act like there was, because that was the stimulation, that was the impetus for his new executive order.
The one that you and Michael just discussed, correct?
Yes, which says he's going after anybody who messes with previous elections or these elections, or in any way. It's such a carte blanche. It's any digital crime, basically, which, even Robert Mueller, right now, if we looked at his offshore accounts, we'd see them growing bigger every day. And we could trace that right back to his Lord and Master. That would be George Soros.
So he's outplayed the swamp.
He's turned the swamp into a cesspool, but he cleaned up his end over there at the White House.
The next is a retweet by Richard Burr. He's a Republican from North Carolina, and he also is on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He's the chairman. Quote, I can say as it relates to the Senate Intelligence Committee investigation that we have no hard evidence of collusion, close quote.
Now, these are the people who created the Russian dossier. Richard Burr is supposed to be in charge of that committee. He has been a soy boy, do nothing, kick him out of Congress, non-MAGA obstructionist, part of the resistance, and he is 100% complicit as one of the gang of 8 of knowing from the beginning about the fake dossier, which to this very day, he does not discredit. Why doesn't he say here, I'm going to work to make sure that the people who created that Russian dossier all go to jail? That's what he should be saying. But what does he really need to say here? He says, well, we found no hard evidence. In other words, he didn't really say that Trump was innocent. He said we found no hard evidence yet. Now, they're still investigating. They've been investigating forever. Glenn Simpson came before them, closed-door hearing. Dianne Feinstein released that and then quit and went over to her Judiciary Committee to protect her criminal activities over there and let Mark Warner step up so that he could become the bulldog of that committee where so much corruption, so much leaking, so many conspirators are part and parcel of the Senate Intelligence Committee that you might as well call it what Betsy calls it, corruption junction.
Well, the thing is that this committee actually has a person that is officially there to take the leaks and walk it over to the press.
Oh, yeah. That was James Wolfe for many years and his prostitutes. Don't think for one second that Allie Watkins was the only girl that he was having sex with, releasing top secret information. You must be kidding, and you're very naive if that's what you think. Their relationship went on for a long time. It wasn't the first, and that's the reason they modeled House of Cards and Kevin Spacey's relationship with that prostitute upon that. I mean, this was so well known. Everybody knew this. Everyone knew this. If you didn't... When she was releasing this top secret information from a FISA court, I said, why doesn't she go to jail? Because it was institutionalized. Why aren't they investigating her now? Because it's institutionalized. Why did she get fired from either one of her jobs? Because it's institutionalized. Let's remember, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, they were all part of the Russian dossier releasing it. They worked with foreign agents. They're part of the conspiracy that Trump has now written an executive order that says he can put them in jail.
Middle class income hits all-time high and will continue to rise unless the Democrats get in and destroy what we have built.
And they will. Their platform.
No, they're not going to get in.
If they get in, they're going to. They say they're going to raise taxes. They say that putting that thousands of dollars in your pocket that Trump put there was nothing, and it meant nothing to any of you, and that the tax breaks mean nothing to any of you, and they will not affect you. And giving DACA immunity to 22 million illegal aliens, that's what the Democrats want. And they assume that's what you want. They also want sanctuary cities. They want illegal aliens to go out and murder anyone that they want and then be released again and again and again. They want no borders. They want globalism. They wanted the TPP. They wanted the climate change, $5 trillion investment only America was going to be paying for the first few years. They wanted the complete and absolute vampirism that globalism brings to America. That's what the Dems want. And they're strong. They're holding to their socialist ways until Bernie has to get out and become a socialist party that can go even further left into complete fascism. He is going to march on the Bastille because as far as he's concerned, we're still in the French Revolution because he's so out of step and out of time.
3,000 people did not die in the 2 hurricanes that hit Puerto Rico. When I left the island after the storm had hit, they had anywhere from 6 to 18 deaths. As time went by, it did not go up by much. Then, a long time later, they started to report really large numbers, like 3,000. This was done by the Democrats in order to make me look as bad as possible when I was successfully raising billions of dollars to help rebuild Puerto Rico. If a person died for any reason, like old age, just add them onto the list. Bad politics. I love Puerto Rico.
He got nothing but bad rap with Puerto Rico, and he did them great favors. Even their officials came after him And it has been proven that they took the relief funds, they took the relief food, and wasted it so that they could attempt to smear Trump. This is what's going on now. Trump goes to Puerto Rico. Let's look at the Clintons when they went to Haiti. How many children came up missing? How many of them were caught in the control and possession of Hillary friends and people that her foundation was supporting there in Haiti? How many people did they help? Nobody. How many things did they build? They built one small factory to build clothes, which didn't help anybody. So they took money from the Red Cross. They took money, the Clintons, from everywhere for Haiti and for every disaster that they ever came near, and ripped them off. What does Trump do? He put in his own money. He put in his own time. He literally went there. He did everything he could. Remember, Puerto Rico was bankrupt before the storm hit. And as he said, the fake news that thousands died, complete lie. He is the most responsive president we've had in modern times.
The Wall Street Journal has it wrong. We are under no pressure to make a deal with China. They are under pressure to make a deal with us. Our markets are surging. Theirs are collapsing. We will soon be taking in billions in tariffs and making products at home. If we meet, we meet.
They've already been back, China, kissing the feet of Trump. They've already sent their representatives, and we sent them home because they're crazy, and now he has gone crazy. We told you he was crazy, but now he has gone crazy, and his own people know he's crazy. Totalitarian dictator Xi in China has gone nuts, and it's good because Eric Schmidt and Facebook and all the Silicon Valley cardboard cutout monsters are over there trying to get their piece of the pie, and they're being lied to, just like China lies about their stock market. China lies about their currency. China lies about their gold reserves. China lies about putting radioactive material in their products. China lies and makes plastic rice and sends it all over the world. Fake gold bullion, fake silver, whatever it is, you can guarantee that China is lying about it. And that's the reason that Trump has yet to come up with a deal with them. Congress needs to back out. And, we're not using Mitch McConnell's wife this time to do the deal with China, which is the standard way to do all shipping deals and building deals, because Mitch McConnell had his piece of the China pie, just like Kissinger has his piece, like Eric Schmidt has his piece. But what is China getting from Trump? Nothing. And if we wait long enough, they literally cannot last more than a few more months until they collapse. Good. We want them to collapse. We want them to leave the World Trade Organization because of their lies and their cheating, their tariffs and their sanctions. We want them to leave the International Monetary Fund because of their lies about their gold-backed yuan and their lies about their gold reserves. We want them to crash. They are our enemy. We are in a war with China. Most people don't understand that. They've broken the sanctions with North Korea. They've broken the sanctions with Iran. They've broken the sanctions everywhere. Look at the South China Sea. China's our enemy. They're losing. Right now, he's on his last leg, totalitarian dictator Xi, and he is threatening to do basically a war, a military takeover of Taiwan any minute, because if he doesn't secure Taiwan, his other failed approaches like the One Belt, One Road and all the One China initiative, all these things, no, they're all failing, and Trump is bringing them to their knees, and we need to, because that's the only way we're going to stop their aggressiveness. They have a 1 million man army. What do they do with it? Every once in a while they declare a national emergency, do something with it. But otherwise, they're sitting around militarized up to the ears, and they can only produce 45% of what they need to be self-sufficient. They are a manufacturing nation. They are a failure, not only in their social idealism with communism and with totalitarianism, they're a failure economically. That's the reason why we predict that Mr. Ma will probably
of Alabama
not have much of a
he was
good
going to retire.
Future. Yeah, his retirement might be cut a little bit short, like so many of the other rich people in China who just come up missing. So stand back, Wall Street Journal. You have no idea what is happening. Trump just told you our markets are surging, China's are collapsing. No one has ever been able to dent China until Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. Okay. Now we get to your final tweet with your favorite senator, Debbie Stabenow. Okay, she and the Democrats are totally against approving the Farm Bill. They are fighting tooth and nail to not allow our great farmers to get what they so richly deserve. Work requirements are imperative, and the Dems are a no. Not good.
The Farm Bill is much, much bigger because they've now mixed the food stamp and the food for children in their food programs in schools all together where it belongs under food. This is one of the biggest bills we have, and Trump is trimming it simply by organizing it. The Dems know that this is a weakness at this moment because of the soybeans and the farming deals that are going on with tariffs and non-tariffs and the trade deals. And what they're trying to do is mess up a trade deal by getting in and being too stupid too early. Trump has basically said, no, don't you worry. I'm going to give those farmers, American farmers, more money than they would make had they had the best farming year in their life while I'm doing my deal. And then after that, we're going to get back on track where American farmers are going to be respected around the world, and we're not going to, in the future, once we get established economically with these things, particularly with trade, I believe that he will stop the evil GMOs and stop the evil Monsanto, and he will simply at one point say what Russia said. I'm now going to become, Putin said this, Putin said, Russia is now going to become the number one producer
of organic
food. Why? Because it's a premium. You'd be foolish not to. And if you're going to poison the food in one country and they're going to outlaw those poisons in 27 other countries, then I'm going to become the Russian selling to Americans the food that they're eating at a real premium because they're too stupid to stop this stuff. Well, Trump is not stupid. He will stop it. Debbie Stabenow has always been a traitor. She is not a patriot. Do not believe a word she says. And that what the Democrats are doing right now is exactly what Trump said. This is nothing more than opposition to make sure that the doles still stay high and filled with people on food stamps, which is what the Dems want because that's where their votes come from, they believe, because they virtue signal and say they support those people, though they don't. And because we're in the middle of a trade deal and they need to shut up and sit down and work on the 200 other bills that Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell have buried to make sure that the real MAGA agenda doesn't go forward. They need to stop focusing on garbage like tax bills that Paul Ryan invents while he's in the shower.
That's not going to happen until we have a successful midterm. This is the most important. I tell you, 2016 was the voting of our lifetime, but a close second will be this 2018 midterms. Hope all the patriots out there will get up and get to the polls that day.
It is imperative, absolutely imperative. And what Trump is doing with his executive order is making sure that the criminals know that if they do it this time, they're being watched and there will be a report, and that he will be able to go after them secretly through the United States Treasury and the Office of Intelligence and Analysis and U.S. Marshals to simply go after those criminals without telling anyone what his strategy is.
So let me give you an example. We know that there is a software called Optech that runs on many of these election rigging machines. So if you're this company, Optech, and you know what you're doing and you know that you're manipulating votes, then what would happen to you if POTUS's team finds out after the elections that you were doing it?
Then you are seen as basically an enemy combatant, and you can be treated in it with basically as a military attack upon the United States government.
We don't want to see the company just go bankrupt and everybody's fine. I want to know if people will be held at Optech, because we know, for example, Mitt Romney is involved with this election machinery. Will they personally be responsible for these crimes?
Trump's new executive order states not only companies, but individuals who support those companies, as well as companies and individuals who support foreign countries in meddling, as well as people just doing it independently, as well as many other carte blanche statements where anyone, in any sense of the word, attacking a campaign, he literally says a campaign, a candidate, just attacking them digitally, which is happening right now, We have the attacks of Twitter, the attacks of Facebook, the attacks of Google, all against Trump, all against conservatives, all against all these people who are basically like us, citizen journalists. Attack, attack, attack. He has now said he has created a national emergency to go after those people. Those people can individually, yes, be prosecuted.
So a Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, will she personally be held responsible for this?
She's going to have to chase Eric Schmidt and leave the country to China, so that she can hide. Yes, they will personally be held responsible. We have given all of the evidence that is needed to put that entire cabal, about 36 of them, in jail permanently for this conspiracy that happened in the 2016 election. We have all that, plus more, but that's all that would be necessary with this new executive order, to literally consider them enemy combatants. And if it was considered a conspiracy, they could all be rounded up and put in Gitmo until they are all tried in a military tribunal.
That would be Mark Zuckerberg, Eric Schmidt, Jack Dorsey.
Yes.
Not Carlos Slim, but Jeff Bezos.
Carlos Slim, he was part of the New York Times Russian dossier nonsense. He's an owner.
Okay.
He was part of the Juicer Clinton.
I was thinking of Americans that have committed these crimes or will. So right here is the marker. If we find out that there's any more of this meddling in our election by these folks, the clock starts.
Now, here's what they don't get. There ain't a single Democrat, not even the smart ones, not even the vicious smart ones like a John Podesta or a Hillary Clinton. They don't understand what just happened. What just happened with this executive order is there is going to be a complete report from all agencies personally to Trump. And by the way, throughout the election, he's going to receive information, because in the executive order, he says that you can directly contact him. He says you can directly...
You mean anybody?
Yeah, you can directly bring the evidence to the president. He says this right in the executive order.
You need to make sure to send up our audios and our citizen intelligence reports to him, so he'll have them and he can consider them.
And then there's going to be a 30-day and a 40-day report after the election. He could, through those reports, invalidate the election if they win, and they would then have the number of votes in the House to get impeachment. Oh, he can stop that. He can simply point out the corruption of Optech. He can simply say, you didn't use paper ballots. You used Sierra and Diebold and Civic Interheart and all these other ones, and the one that...
and we can't audit them.
Systematic.
And a bipartisan chain of custody.
Mitt Romney owns one of them that controls the election machines in 17 states, and his son, Tag, runs the company, okay? That's how corrupt it is. All he has to do is put a little pressure on those people. He can put Mitt Romney in jail and slow walk that treason until Romney is dead and never leaving jail, because all they have to do is collect the money from his offshore accounts and do to Manafort in a grand jury indictment, what they did to Manafort. Look at all this offshore money you have. Mr. Bain Capital, Mr. Velmet Bank, Mr. Ripoff USSR, Mr. Ripoff Russia, Mr. Bush, because Mitt Romney is a Bush. He's as criminal as Daddy Bush. He was working with Daddy Bush's brother in Velmet Bank. No one could be more corrupt than Mitt Romney, who has come to Washington, D.C. to take the place of John McCain as the ultimate rhino. And he will literally take over where McCain left off with Henry Kerner and the Senate Intelligence Committee. He knows the routine. He's been controlled by Hillary and her keys of the digital internet since he helped invest with Bain Capital into Systematic, which was one of the first digital companies, big IT companies that Hillary was part of, that literally started this Internet of Things and then led to Entrust and the public key infrastructures we now show are the crypto keys, the encryption keys that Hillary has for every single transmission and reception of that transmission that happens on the internet. Hillary is a part of Entrust, and Entrust owns those keys, and they are a corporate group. They are not part of the U.S. military.
But this leaves people like, oh my gosh, what do we do? So can you wrap it up and tell us, how do we get these keys away from her?
Oh, very easy. President Trump signs the Miller Act and let Leader Technology be paid to basically come in and use their versions of what we know now as Facebook, their versions of Google, their versions of YouTube, their versions of Entrust. They have crypto recognition software and intellectual property and corporate secrets that they developed, copywritten materials. They take that, and then everything below that and after that, which came and was stolen basically by the IBM Eclipse Foundation, and then turned into Agilent, and Agilent has the Internet of Things patent, and that's who basically Entrust is mimicking. You simply go in, you take that over, and all of them have to collapse because they all have to pay their licensing fees because they stole it. The proof is there. Supreme Court makes a decision. If they wanted to, wouldn't have to. But the second that you pay Leader Technology for what was stolen, then the people who stole it are going to have to pay their license fees, which would collapse all of those companies, admit it, which would close all of those companies, or work with you completely, turn over all their assets, turn it into a public utility, get rid of all surveillance, and give it right back. But it will not be controlled by corporations. It will be controlled by we the people, by the Americans who paid for 40 to 45% of the hardware that still to this day is running the internet. The internet is taxed by Entrust, but it is owned by America, folks, because AT&T, Verizon, Sprint were all subsidized by your tax dollars. You probably don't know this. The internet is owned by us. Even the cables that go across the ocean and go to other countries, we can turn off those cables. People don't understand. We Americans are the internet. When we gave away ICANN address assignment from Stephen Crocker, who was part of this cabal down in Rose law firm in Little Rock, Arkansas, and we gave it to International Concerns, that was a fake out, folks. We Americans still own the internet. We need to take it back and turn it into a public utility, as well as then working with Leader Technology as a new surveillance-free, totally information-free internet, which would probably cost a fraction of what it's costing now.